Hawkeye.
You cannot beat me. Avengers assemble!
The Avengers.
Hey folks, I'm Rainiac and this is Captain America and the Avengers, an arcade beat-em-up released by Data East in 1991. It was later ported over to the Super Nintendo, the Sega Genesis / Mega Drive, the Game Boy, and the Game Gear. Now I'm going to start off as Captain America because he just happens to be the title character in Captain America and the Avengers. Rest assured you will see all four of the Avengers before this one is all said and done. And rather unusually for a game based on a comic book property, the story for this game is entirely original. It's also dumb as all hell. The basic premise is the Red Skull has amassed a team of Marvel supervillains by luring them in with money and then brainwashing them. Which begs the question, why did you need to brainwash them when you already bought their services with the money? I guess it does stop them betraying you, and when you're a megalomaniac like the Red Skull, betrayal is an occupational hazard.
Avengers assemble! Leave it to me!
The controls for this game are extremely basic. It's a 2-button setup plus the control stick, which you use to move your character around. Button A attacks, button B jumps. If you don't tap the control stick, you'll run that direction, and then you can press the attack button to do a charge attack. This is extremely useful in the early going of the game for wiping out large groups of enemies because they have a very low amount of base health. You can also pick up these items off the ground and throw them using the attack button, which is also recommended because, as I say, the enemies have a very low amount of base health, and if you press jump and attack together, you'll do an Avenger attack. It's different for each character. Captain America throws his shield, more on that in a second, because over here we have a bank robbery which we have to stop.
Don't disturb us.
So these two guys are the Living Laser and the Claw respectively. The Living Laser is perhaps best known for his appearance in the 1994 Iron Man cartoon series, where he was a henchman of the Mandarin, while Claw, who's a Black Panther villain by tradition, is perhaps best known for his recent appearance in the second Avengers film, The Age of Ultron, played by Andy Serkis. I always take the Claw out first because he can hold you in place with that pink hand attack for the laser to hit you, and that's very annoying. Doesn't really matter which order you take him out in, though. And the laser does have a pretty short range attack, so they're not that hard. And speaking of characters from the Age of Ultron, we have another one here in Quicksilver, real name Pietro Maximoff. He plays a supporting role in this game. He'll throw those silver pellets onto the ground, and if you pick them up, you will regain 20 points of your health. And this is extremely important, because this is an arcade game, and the main purpose of an arcade game is to separate you from your hard-earned money in the form of you putting more quarters into the machine. So any chance you get in the beat 'em up to replenish some of your health, you want to take it. Both those enemies explode on contact. Those bear hug guys are particularly problematic, and over here we have the first boss.
You can't escape! You will be the one escaping!
Careful, that money he throws at the start of the fight can hurt you. So this is Whirlwind. He was also a henchman of the Mandarin in the 1994 cartoon series, and here he's kind of a joke. When he's spinning around, you want to hit him with your projectile Avenger attack move. I didn't because I'm an idiot. I decided to fight him hand to hand. Once he lands and stops spinning, however, you can finish him off however you see fit. I like to finish him off with running attacks, but you can use Avenger attacks, jump attacks. Hell, if you want to just get near him and beat him up with your fists, you do whatever you want to do. It is your choice after all. One thing I do like about this game are these comic book cutscenes that you get between levels, and it's kind of a shame that the Sega Genesis / Mega Drive version took them out completely. I'm not sure why Data East did that, but they're gone. They're not there anymore. As we start level 2, I should mention one more very important part of the gameplay. Unlike most beat-em-ups, this game actually allows you to block attacks. Well, sort of. If you hold down the attack button, your character will enter a kind of defensive stance. Now, this is very useful because it blocks projectiles, but it doesn't block physical attacks such as punches and kicks, so it's only half useful. Another thing you can do is you can actually pick up your enemies and throw them. This too is very useful because it will actually insta-kill the enemy that you throw, and any enemy you throw them into will take huge damage. However, the execution of throwing an enemy is a little bit fiddly. You're meant to knock them down and then pick them up. However, as you'll see in just a second, sometimes you can actually pick them up while they're standing up. Quite why that happened just now, I have no idea, But hey, onwards and upwards.
Hey, get on! Thank you, Wonder Man. Okay, go!
So thanks to Wonder Man here, the game now enters a kind of side-scrolling shoot-'em-up level, and you can still hold your attack button to block attacks. I wouldn't recommend you do that all the time, however, because these guys are not projectiles. These are the most populous enemy in this level, and they're extremely difficult to dodge, so just be careful. Both buttons will now throw your attack out. Now what you're supposed to do is just hit the one button to attack, but I find if you hit them consecutively, over and over again, you get a much faster rate of fire. And given that you're trying to preserve your health as much as possible at this point, it really is recommended for you to do that. Now you'll notice that at the start of the stage we had a supporting character called Wonder Man show up. He doesn't actually show up unless you're playing as Captain America or Hawkeye at this point. If you're Iron Man or Vision, they can fly, so they just zoom straight into the action. His real name is Simon Williams, and he was actually retired by Marvel briefly to avoid a clash with Wonder Woman. Then DC brought out Power Girl after Marvel brought out Power Man, so they thought, you know what, we'll bring Wonder Man back, screw it. Another supporting character here in the form of Wasp. She was the first female Avenger, and in this game she's extremely useful. She's probably tied in terms of how useful she is with Quicksilver. You can press the attack button while she's active and she'll shoot out and damage any enemy that she touches. So you can just kind of hold back and block all the projectiles, except not, because those guys that fly at you, as I said, you can't block them. And you'll notice I've just got 100 points of my health back. No secret there, I put another coin into the machine. Well, I didn't put an actual coin physically into my computer, but you know what I'm saying. And then hit the start button. Every time you do that, you will get 100 points of your health back. I can't remember an arcade game I've played that does that, other than this one, to be honest with you, but I could be entirely mistaken. And here we have the appearance of a rather familiar mini-boss, especially if you're a fan of the X-Men. The game calls this the giant robot, but let's be honest, this is a Sentinel. Also, Wasp has to go now because her home planet needs it. You want to shoot the Sentinels or giant robot's hands whenever they show up, because he'll try and grab you. If he does that, he'll hold you in place for the lasers to strike you, and also do a bit of additional damage. But as long as you're hitting the buttons rapidly, this guy isn't much of a problem and goes down pretty quickly, in all honesty. And if you don't hit any buttons after you defeat him, you get that rather nice little glitch where your character just hangs in the air for a couple of seconds for no apparent reason. The mirror robots are kind of tricky. These small projectiles and your Avenger attack will not damage them at all. You can ever pick up big objects such as those barrels or indeed other enemies and throw them at them, and they'll do quite a bit of damage. The orange robots attack like Roadkill Rodney from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series, and here I got into a spot of bother. I got swarmed. And that's kind of the problem with this game. You don't have a desperation move like most beat 'em ups. If you're being entirely swarmed by enemies, you can press the two attack buttons or up the two buttons, and you'll do a move that clears out the screen, but also takes some of your health. You don't have that in this game. The Avenger attack is useful for taking out enemies from afar, but you don't have a way of clearing the screen if they're getting up and in your face. Anyway, time for the second boss.
You came here to die.
Not gonna lie, that's a pretty cool intro. I'm not sure what that tree did to him to piss him off so much, but it was a cool intro. So this is the Grim Reaper. He is significantly tougher than Whirlwind, although that's not saying much because Whirlwind was an absolute cakewalk. He will shoot those fireballs at you, you just want to run away from them or jump them. His main form of attack is spinning his scythe and also slashing you in the back if you're stupid enough to jump right over him like I was. Projectile moves work pretty effectively against him, but not when he's spinning his scythe because he's completely invincible. Well, he's not invincible, but he will have higher priority than you every single time. Your best chance of hitting him is when he does the helicopter move. If you can get to the other side of him and dodge the fireball, he's wide open for you to beat the crap out of. Now, I said earlier that Wonder Man's real name was Simon Williams. Well, the Grim Reaper's real name is actually Eric Williams, so he happens to be Wonder Man's brother. So yeah, a more difficult boss fight, but still not that hard. If you know what you're doing, you can just get over to him, beat the crap out of him, and finish him off with a shield to the face. That was very satisfying. End of stage 2. And your reward for beating that boss is a rather humorous cutscene. I don't think Data East intended to be humorous, but to me, it's hilarious. Look at Grim Reaper's face! Just look at it! I'm not sure what kind of emotion he's going for there. I can't tell if he's stoned or very, very confused. Also, buddy, did you ever not tell you it's rude to point? Now, as we're into stage 3, you'll notice that our enemies have a few new tricks to unleash against us. In the form of these silver robotic grunt dudes, now having the ability to fly. Now, this looks rather cool and impressive, but in actuality it really isn't, because they didn't bother to change these robots' base health, so they still go down in 2 or 3 strong hits, and also, The flying, you can just move to the other side of the screen to avoid it till they come down, and then they are open to any of the attacks that you choose to use against them. The main thing the flying does is make them more difficult to deal with, or rather more annoying to deal with, because they'll fly up the screen out of your range, so they just take longer to destroy. Fortunately, the monotony of the robot fighting is broken up by the appearance of this rather interesting mini-boss. This is the Wizard. He's also known as the Wingless Wizard, and his real name is Bentley Whitman. Now, Bentley Whitman is a very interesting character. He was an early enemy of the Human Torch, and he is a master of disguise, he's a chess grandmaster, he is a super genius, he is an escape artist, he just killed Captain America with a laser blast to the back, so I have to switch over to Iron Man. But that gives me a chance to show what Iron Man can do that's different to Captain America. That projectile he just hit me with, that's the Wizard's kind of trademark move, the anti-gravity disc. He had that in the comic books as well. And he could also mind control people with his helmet. So yes, a very interesting supervillain that you may never have heard of. And kind of anticlimactically here, I finished him off with a laser blast to the face. Our final supporting character here is the Submariner, and honestly, I'm not a huge fan of his. His full name is actually Namor the Submariner, not that the game tells you this, but to me he just comes across as an Aquaman ripoff. And I don't like the fact either that he doesn't look much like a superhero, he looks more like a generic guy in swimming trunks. And I think Data East privately agreed with me, because they didn't even bother giving me a thank you Submariner voice clip when he shows up just now, it just says thank you. Now this underwater segment is very similar to the flying segment from stage 2. You want to stay at the bottom of the screen wherever possible because that's the easiest way to shoot all the enemies and avoid getting hit. You just want to rise up to shoot these electric fish that will explode on contact and the blue scuba men. And case in point there as to how useless the Submariner is, he's supposed to hit those fish and make them explode. He missed by a country mile. Now this mini-boss is called the Mech Taco. I'm sure it's supposed to be the Mech Octo, but it's just like a mistake in localization, but it's hilarious, someone run with it. The Taco will shoot lasers at you, and will also try and grab you with his tentacles, but if anything, he's even easier than the Sentinel/Giant Robot that he fights very similar to, because the tentacles do grab you like I just did then. You only do take 1 damage. So yeah, even easier than Sentinel Giant Robot, even though it fights very similar to it. Now the game drops us straight into an ambush here, but fortunately, someone was kind enough to leave these abandoned missiles just lying around for us to pick up and throw at the enemies blocking our path. And this is another problem I can't have with this game, the variety of enemies. I do appreciate what Data East were trying to do. They were trying to have you fight the same enemy but palette swap. That's nothing new in beat 'em ups. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles did that as well with the various multicoloured foot soldiers. But the problem with that game is that's a much longer game than this one is. So while there are different enemy types, it's just going to feel like you're fighting the same guys over and over again because there's only 5 levels in this game rather than the usual 8. Also, you can use any attack that you want to break these barriers, including throwing missiles at them, although I completely missed. So yeah, this game is shorter than most beat 'em ups for the arcade, and that means that it's going to just give the feeling that you're fighting the same enemies over and over again, even if actually, technically speaking, you're not. So that's kind of a problem, but hey. Another problem is that you do tend to get swarmed, especially in these later levels, and this level is kind of where the difficulty ramps up a bit. I mean, I've already lost 1 character and 2 credits, but most people will be able to get to this stage, I think, without losing a character. Also, those Battle guys are still very annoying, and the Roadkill Rodney guys are now coloured orange. I'm pretty sure they were coloured a different thing in stage 1. Anyway, on to our third boss. At long last, a Marvel supervillain people might actually recognise. This is the Mandarin. He appeared in Iron Man 3, played by Sir Ben Kingsley, and also played, of course, by Guy Pearce, because the whole twist of that film was that the person you thought was the Mandarin actually wasn't. He was an actor hired by the real Mandarin, played by Guy Pearce, who was also known as Killian. In this game, the Mandarin's a good fight. He has a nice variety of attacks. When he's moving around like that with that sort of after image, you don't want to hit him because he's invincible, so you just shoot projectiles at him. I can't call it Avenger attack, I'll just put projectiles. The Ice Beam is a good opportunity to get up in his face and hit him. To avoid the clone, you just need to run away from them, or you can strike the clone, which kind of kills the clone in 1 hit. And as I said, just keep your distance. That Shadow Uppercut is his trump card. It does a lot of damage if it hits you, so just try and keep your distance. Keep hitting projectiles. When it comes down to fight you face to face, he is wide open for a shoulder attack. Also careful for the fire move there. It actually shoots a laser beam, where you can just use Iron Man's aerial laser blast to avoid it. So that's really all there is to the Mandarin, but coming up is a rather cool way to finish him off. She'll tackle the clone, I shall tackle the real Mandarin, and done.
You cannot beat me.
Another thing these cutscenes are good for is they actually show you who you're going to be fighting if you pay attention later in the level. I mean, of course I know it because I've played this game multiple times. Also, that shot of the Red Skull over the earth kind of looks like he wants to eat it. Or some gigantic world sandwich. Now you might think from the way this level starts that we're going to be in space and another flying segment, but actually this is a complete fake out because you just fly straight into a hangar and then we're right back to the beat 'em up robot fighting. I don't know why they bothered to do that fake out. Maybe it was to trick you into thinking that you weren't going to be doing a beat 'em up section if the game's been more varied. I don't know because I don't work for Data East unfortunately, and I can't anyway because I don't have the phone. Speaking of Data East, as I mentioned earlier, this game was ported over to several different consoles after the arcade release. That's nothing particularly new. The Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis version are the most well known. It was also ported over to the Game Boy and the Game Gear. But interestingly, the Super Nintendo version was developed by a completely different company, Mindscape, as opposed to Data East, and they also went on to develop the portable versions. I haven't played the portable versions. I believe they are exactly the same as the Super Nintendo one, however. Another thing the Super Nintendo version did, which I didn't approve of at all, is it actually fixed the dialogue. Now you might think, well, that's good then, isn't it? Because the dialogue's kind of full of errors and it's badly localized. But that's kind of the charm of the game. Taking it out removes kind of the fun of it, in my opinion. That's also the reason why people kind of like Zero Wing in an ironic sense, even though the localization is terrible. And another familiar boss here, well, mini-boss anyway, the Juggernaut from the X-Men. He is very simple, really. He can only be knocked back when he is not rolling or charging, so you want to try and keep your distance. Projectile attacks and running attacks work very, very well against him, but don't run an attack when he's rolling or you'll take damage every single time. You can pick up those, I don't know what they are, boxes I guess, to throw at him. But I tend to just keep my distance, or do a very bad job of it here. What you don't want to do is what I did here, is actually get face to face and fight him in hand-to-hand combat, because he'll beat you every single time to the punch. So Data East will go on to make 2 more Avengers games. They also, by the way, make games like, I mean, you may never have heard Data East, but chances are you will have heard of games they've made. Because they made games like Karnov and Joe and Mac, and Night Slashers, and of course, perhaps their most famous game, Burger Time, which is considered by many to be an arcade and NES classic. But they went on to make 2 more Avengers games. One of them, rather confusingly, was also titled Captain America and the Avengers for the NES. But this wasn't a straight port of this game, this was in fact a more of an action platformer, and you could only play as Captain America and Hawkeye, and you had to save Iron Man and Vision from the clutches of the Mandarin, and then go on to fight Red Skull. And I think the reason why they did this is because the NES was a console that we only had 2 controller slots. Well, there were games where you could play more than 2 players, but you had to have an adapter, and the adapter wasn't the standard. So I think that's what they did. It's kind of like Battletoads, where in each of the Battletoads games, one of the Toads gets kidnapped at the start of the game, so you don't have any excuse to you could have the 3 characters. Anyway, enough ranting. 4th boss.
Where is the laser? Ask the police.
Wonderful advice there, Ultron. Where's the laser beam? Call the cops. Yeah, whatever you say. So this is Ultron then, and honestly he's my least favourite boss of the entire game, even more so than the final boss, because this is basically RNG, the boss fight. He has a few attacks that are very difficult to deal with. Also, for some reason, the hitboxes in this fight are atrocious. That Saga Crusher move is very quick, comes out very fast, and that move where he spreads lasers all over the place murdered Iron Man, his creator. Well, if we go off the Marvel Cinematic Universe canon, his creator, but this came out way before the Cinematic Universe. I'm not sure what happened there with the Vision. I think the game thought I was throwing Ultron, but somehow he escaped, and therefore he hit me. Again, the aerial move works quite well. You do not want to be standing still, because he'll just use the laser blast, and that has a high priority every single time. Running attacks do work quite well against Ultron, but you still have to get kind of lucky with the RNG. I mean, if you're lucky, when he's standing and doing that spread laser attack, if you can avoid the lasers, you can just kind of run in and hit him with multiple running attacks to do a lot of damage to him. And that's the end of him. Get out of here, you 67-man reject. Sorry, I'm not a huge fan of Ultron at all. In this game, he's a very cool villain when voiced by James Spader in Age of Ultron, the second Avengers film, but here, not so much. So, believe it or not, we're approaching the final level of the game, and this cutscene has Captain America with a green hat for some reason. Well, not hat, costume. Also, another cheesy Red Skull pose.
Avengers assemble!
Now the game is no longer messing around, so it just throws you straight into another flying section, but this one is even harder than the one in Stage 2, because your enemies have been upgraded in the form of more pallet swaps, they take more damage, they do more damage to you as well, and that is particularly problematic when it comes to these red guys, because they still fly at you, but now they take more hits, so chances are you're going to get hit by them at least a few times. This is not a particularly hard arcade game, because I have seen people beat this on 1 credit, and of course the fact that you can replenish your health by collecting Quicksilver's pellets does help, but it's still quite tricky, and most people would not be able to 1 credit, I would think, anyway. Especially not at the time it was released. Now fortunately, although this is a difficult section, we do have Wasp to make things a bit easier, and it does give me the chance to say some facts about Wasp. So as I said, she's the first female Avenger, her real name is Janet Van Dyne, and she is married, or this one time in the comic book canon, she was married to Hank Pym, another one of the Avengers. Now Hank Pym's an interesting character, though he doesn't show up in this game unfortunately, because he actually went by several different aliases, which is unusual for superheroes because usually they either have one moniker that they stick to throughout their whole career, or they have one and then they retire it and then they bring out another one. But Hank Pym has been known as Ant-Man, Yellow Jacket and Giant Man, and I'm probably forgetting others, throughout his tenure as a superhero, without retiring any of them. Now there's the giant laser cannon. This is less of a boss fight and more just destroy it. For some reason they do include a couple of random scuba dudes on top of the laser cannon, which to me kind of looks like the reactor from Kirby. And I need to call it the combo cannon. That's a different boss fight there, Rainiac. A couple of robots show up to take care of you, but they're easy. I mean, come on, you've dealt with these robots enough times by now. You can only damage the laser cannon with physical attacks. You can't throw things at it, you can't shoot laser blasts at it, so just be wary of that. But once you take care of the robots, it really is no problem. And yet more robots. I do love Vision's one-handed grab stance. And to be honest, I think Vision is my favourite character in this game. He's not my favourite superhero of the 4 of them. I think that's probably Iron Man, just because he's so damn snarky at times. But in this game, he is my favourite. Also, he can turn invisible when you block, which is a rather cool effect. I mean, this game was made in 1991, but honestly, the graphical effects are pretty good for the most part. They do give you a comic book feel. I'll tell you what this is, Vision. It's a trap. You got dropped into a trap door here. Don't panic though. Nothing actually is going to change. It's just a way of changing up the location of the stage a bit. Well, gee, Crossbones, I never could have guessed I was trapped when the wall came down and locked us all in. So I used to think that these guys were just generic enemies. Turns out they're actually an Iron Man villain, kind of, anyway, called the Controller, who, as the name might imply, could mind control people using his helmet. And he's kind of amusing to me because he has the worst real name of any villain I've ever encountered, in my opinion, because his real name is Basil Sandhurst. To beat the control, just keep doing running attacks and avoid those buzzsaws that are running across the floor there. I do quite like that sort of disco floor effect that you see there. And one more thing I should point out is you actually have 2 jump attacks. If you press the jump button and immediately press the attack button, you'll do a kind of jump attack if you're the Vision. If you press it after you've jumped like a second or 2, you'll do the laser blast.
You can't go through.
A particularly fitting mid-boss then, given who we're about to fight after him. This is Crossbones. Real name is Brock Rumlow. He is a mercenary for hire and a high-ranking member of Hydra, who's like one of the major villainous organizations within Marvel comic books, and they're very well known for being in the Avengers films and in, of course, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. And I think the first Captain America film, I haven't actually seen that one. In this game, he's a good fight. He's got some good projectile attacks. You can actually block his knives when he throws them if you're quick enough, and then throw them back at him, but I never actually managed to do that. Other than that, just want to keep your distance, use your projectile whenever possible. You'll notice I have to switch over to Hawkeye here, who doesn't have an aerial projectile, which makes this fight slightly more difficult, but not really that more difficult. I appreciate it, honestly, because he's a good fight. You can pick up those mines and throw them at him as well, but it's difficult to do that before they blow up in your hand. And other than that, just like any other mini-boss fight in this game, keep your distance, take your time, don't lose your patience, and just try and preserve your health. And don't do stupid things like that where you jump straight into a knife attack. But Crossbones goes down relatively easy. And just beyond this barrier here, we have who else but, also you can bounce off the barrier, I'm going to tell you here, who else but the Red Skull. Except the game fakes you out again and you're not quite fighting the Red Skull just yet. Instead, you go up these stairs after I've taken a second to show off Hawkeye's hilarious twirly bow defensive animation. You go up these stairs and you are greeted with yet more robots. God damn it. This is just to wear your health down. This is purely just to wear your health down for the fight to come. It's shameless. It's absolutely shameless at this point, to be honest with you. And most beat 'em ups do this, but I'm not a fan of it. I guess I can't really complain too much. And maybe if I didn't want to take too much damage, I should have not got hit.
You can't escape!
So it's time for our final boss fight, the Red Skull, with 104 health, which to beat him. Now honestly, the Red Skull is pretty pathetic for a final boss because he has no real projectile moves to speak of, he doesn't have any special moves, he just moves around trying to punch and kick you and he does a jump kick. And for a final boss in a beat 'em up, that's pretty disappointing, you would think, wouldn't you? I mean, he's just like a generic regular enemy, pretty much. You can just keep your distance, shoot him with projectiles, and he's an absolute piece of cake. Well, hold that thought.
It's another trap. You stupid men! We'll teach you the meaning of justice!
Of course he's going to have another form. This is the final boss of a beat 'em up after all. So this is the true final boss of the game, the Mech Skull. I don't know the opinion of the comic books, he may be an entirely original character. He's okay for a final boss, but he does suffer from the fact that you can just stay away from him, and 9 times out of 10 you can just hit him with projectiles. One thing you do not want to do is attack him physically too many times in a row, because he will then just backhand you out of it, and that does a lot of damage. This is the most devastating attack, the Whirlwind, because it will hold you in place for the laser, and will also do a lot of damage on its own. Those orb attacks, they're only kind of problem if you jump into them. You might think, well, why are you going to jump into them? Well, you'll see. The bullets can be avoided by going either long range or right up to him. I'm not sure how they were able to hit me there. That laser is devastating, but very easy to avoid. When it does the rocket arm attack, you can just jump over it to escape it. Running attacks are quite good as long as you can avoid his backhands. And that's really all there is to this fight. However, you're about to see that I made it a hell of a lot more difficult on myself. So I'm now down to 3 points of life. And now I'm panicking. I'm thinking, oh god, I want to beat this guy without having to put another credit and use another Avenger. Can I do it? Well, the way I can do it is I can make it more easy for myself by using projectiles. Fortunately, this boss is much easier when fought at long range, and people might think this is cheap because it's just backing off these projectiles. Now, I'm sorry, I don't agree with that. You do what you have to do to win, and I won with 3 hit points left. That was clutch, even if I do say so myself. And then he falls on top of the Red Skull, and that's it. He's dead forever. And so are we, because the place is about to explode. It said not, because Wonder Man here was here to save the day, fortunately. And then another good old trope of video games. We escape while the base explodes behind us. And of course, Red Skull escaped to fight another day, because that's just how comic book villains worked in the early 90s. And that's the game! that's the end of Captain America and the Avengers. So, my final thoughts on this game then, and a little bit of context as to how I originally came to play it. I first came to play this game, of all places, in one of our major tourist attractions, the Blackpool Tower. Because on one of the floors of the Blackpool Tower, there was an arcade, an old arcade, and it had various different games. It had Street Fighter 2, which was in every arcade at the time in this country anyway. I can't speak for America, but I'm guessing it probably was as well. It had Captain Commando, which is another great beat-em-up. It had this game, and others I'm forgetting. But this one stood out to me as well as Captain Commando because of its title sequence that you saw, where it showed off the different playable characters, and it showed off the different attacks and moves, and that was very striking to me. And it wasn't until maybe 20 years later I got to play the game again, and it didn't hold up that well, but it is still fun. I mean, it's a bit unfair to critique it that much because it's 24 years old. As of the time of this recording. It's 24 years ago this game came out in arcades. So, to make huge complaints about it, we'll just be nitpicking. I know I've made a few complaints about it within the course of this video, which I think are legitimate criticisms, but it's not going to detract too much from how I feel about the game. Because at the end of the day, video games like this one are made for one reason, and that's to have fun. And I had quite a lot of fun recording this, and I hope that you have fun watching me play it as well. Although I will just point out that for some reason Wonder Man picked us up at the end of that boss fight, and yet he didn't need to because you see we can all fly. Iron Man originally do it naturally, and Captain America and Hawkeye have this rather cool jetpacks. And that is the end of the credits, but not quite the end of the game. First we have this rather cool rainbow text appear. I've preempted it, but first we have this rather cool rainbow text appear. And what good would a superhero game be without finishing on a good old-fashioned roll call? Because that's how we're going to end this one off. We get to see all the heroes again, plus the supporting characters. One thing they do that's a little bit silly is they play the opening theme again with the character names. They don't sync it up to when the characters appear on the screen. So actually, when it says like Captain America, Quicksilver's on the screen, and then Iron Man and Wonder Man's here. But again, that's just a nitpick, and I feel like I shouldn't nitpick. I mean, goddammit, as I say, we play games at the end of the day to have fun. And I make Let's Play videos to have fun, and I've done that, and as I say, I hope that you do that. Also, worst character, still. I'm sorry, Generic Mouse Woman Trunk, you just don't cut it. And that picture is pretty much the perfect way to end off. With Fred from Scooby-Doo, Sagat from Street Fighter, and for some reason, a girl in a pink dress beating up the Vision's torso. Because if you're going to celebrate in style, I guess. Speaking of which, one last thing to do, which is to put in my high score. Nothing really to this. I mean, you do this at the end of every beat 'em up, don't you? But one thing I will point out, and it still sounds like I'm kind of crowing about it, this game does actually keep track.
No matter how strong the forces of evil may be, the Avengers will be there.
Thanks for interrupting me there, voiceover. This game does actually keep track, as you can see here, of how many coins you put in the machine to beat the game. And my previous record was 10, and as you can see here at the top of the screen, 8. 8 is my new record. I'm fairly pleased about that. I do think if I spent the time to go this game with a fine-tooth comb, I might be able to do a one-credit run, but there's no way I'm going to go back and do that, because this game might be fun, but it's not fun to play that over and over again. And with that, I think that will be it. We'll call it a day right there. So thank you for watching Captain America and the Avengers. I've been Rainiac. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you all had as much fun as I did. And join me next time for whatever game I play next, on whatever video I release next. Until then, bye for now.